I think I'm supposed to have a script, right? But I keep forgetting to ask for it. So I think the Student Success Committee is now in session. And I guess we'll just start going around and have everyone introduce themselves. We have 2 students online, I think. This is Sarah, Miles, and I think Miss Director Green is going to be joining us.
I see him just now. I'm moving him over into the participants.
Okay. Great. Should we start in the corner over there with Terry?
What's good, everybody? I apologize. I am virtual today as we just got back, and my wife is bent on having Christmas lights up outside. And per her, there's nothing more important going on today than her Christmas lights being up. And happy wife, happy life. And I want to be happy, so I'm virtual.
I'm Terry Proctor with the Communications Department.
I'm Renard Adams, the Chief of Research Assessment and Accountability.
Margaret Calvert, Assistant Superintendent for Secondary and MPG.
John Franco, Chief of Schools.
Hi, I'm Joanna Tobin, Senior Director for Middle Grades Core Academics and Redesign.
Richard Smith, Director of Middle Grades Redesign.
Patty Sullivan, Board Member.
Eddie Wong, Board Member, Chair of this committee.
JJ Contavi, District and Council Representative.
Philip Christie, Senior Director for High School Core Academics.
Christina Howard, Interim Chief Academic Officer.
Jay Buno, Chief of Student Support Services.
Let's go online real quick. Director Green, you want to start us off? And we'll do.
Absolutely. Director Herman Green, Board Vice Chair, and faithful servant to Director Eddie Wong on the Student Success Committee.
Thanks. Sarah, do you want to go next?
Yeah, my name is Sarah, and also like JJ, I'm a DSC representative.
Sweet. What school are you? Do you go to?
Lincoln High School.
Awesome. And I think I see Miles there as well.
Yeah, hi, my name is Miles. I am the other DSC rep for Lincoln, and yeah, with Sarah.
Okay. 2 from Lincoln. If you want to also introduce yourself as well.
I'm Sylvia Hart Landsberg, and I'm with the Recruiter Watch. We're also known as For Resistors League.
I'm Herschel Souls, and I'm with the same group there. We visit the high schools when the recruiters are there.
Yeah.
My name is Michael Estate. I'm a Portland Public School high school graduate. I'm here to talk about GROTC.
Great. So let's I guess we'll get started. I think because it seems like for public comments, everyone here is to talk about GROTC, right? Would everyone be okay if we skip around and do the update first, and then that way can we have the public comments go, so we don't have to hold you for a whole hour and a half until you speak? Would that be okay with everyone?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So can we start? I guess so. We'll move on the agenda item number 4, update on the GROTC. Let's just start with that first. I don't know who is presenting the update.
I can present.
Yeah.
So slide 13. Are you able to share? Should I start or wait?
Sure. Go for it.
Sure. Well, a few weeks ago, I had a chance to speak with Army Instructor Sergeant Rob Aguilar, who teaches at Oregon City High School. He's one of the 2 staff members leading the GROTC program. And the purpose of my conversation with him was to learn a little bit more about GROTC, Oregon City High School is the closest high school that offers the program, and one of maybe two in the state, or one. There's a program at Madras that is currently not running because of staffing shortage. So Army instructor Aguilar really wanted to emphasize that JROTC is a leadership program. It's not a recruiting program. It's a program that's about values and life skills, and he sees it as an opportunity to prepare students for life beyond high school. Oregon City High School average is about 100 cadets a year, and their program, like all other JROTC programs, have at least 2 staff members. Department of Defense typically pays for one of them. The host school district pays for the other. So he shared that with me as well. All qualified staff members are retired from military within the last 3 years. When they transition into schools, they are licensed through CTE. They have typically 3 years to meet those licensure requirements. As I mentioned, school districts pay for one of the 2 instructors typically, and Department of Defense pays for all necessary gear. And there was a significant shortage nationally, where about 400 JROTC positions were not funded or were not properly staffed throughout the country. And as I mentioned, Madras High School used to have a program, but they don't appear to have one this year because of the staff shortage. So that's what I wanted to share today, a little bit more information about JROTC from one of our neighborhood or high schools nearby. I don't know if there are any questions or.
I do. I can't see everybody because the screen is still up. So I don't know how to do that. Or maybe I just make it smaller so that I don't. There we go. So Philippe, thank you so much for that information. Since I've spoken to you, and since you've shared about it, I also reached out to Oregon City. I also reached out to Vancouver. I also reached out to Bend, who has one that's functioning. The Madras situation, I did try to find out a little more information about the Madras situation. Madras is different in that it is it's a rural county, and so when you're out in a rural space and you're looking for retirees, there's not a lot of people retiring to Madras. I mean, that just is what it is. Portland is somewhat different in that Portland is a major city, and there's a lot more people retiring to Portland. So Portland may not have the same stipulations or the same issues with finding someone to sit in and to be the coordinator. Then there's also the funding piece. I looked into that because Director Wong suggested that if you're going to look into it, we need to look into it, all the different things, pros and cons. And so I looked into the funding, and there is space for conversation with the DOJ as where they would pick up more of the tab than they have in the past. As a pilot, and that would be under the with the stipulation that we're going to truly evaluate it, see what's working, see what's not working, and then readjust and pivot where necessary. I want to be clear that the program that we're talking about is not for every PPS student. It is not going to be something that every PPS student is going to want to do, desire to do, feel like they should be doing. This is going to be something when we start looking at our graduate portfolio, and we start looking at the different multiple pathways to graduation. This is going to be for the students that want this. I want to be very clear. This is for the students that want it. If the students don't want that, then it's not for that student. But for the students that do want it, then it is our job to make sure that we give them the opportunity to make a decision for themselves, and not make the decision for them by not even allowing the decision to be on the table. That's the issue that I see with this right now. We're removing their ability to make a cognitive decision by not even putting the decision on the table for them to say yes or no to. Thereby, what we're doing is making that decision on their behalf. And that's what I want to move away from. I'd love to have some more conversation. I know that Mike is there. I know that I believe someone else may be there as well. But I want to have a dialogue around what does it look like for it to be operating within PPS for the students that are going to benefit from it.
Thank you, Director.
Go.
Was there more? Yeah, I mean, I'm open to discussion. I guess to start off, I have lots of questions, which is, if we're taking on this program, I'm going to be 100%, transparent. I'm very skeptical, only because, I grew up in Chicago where there was heavy recruiting by the military, especially among our poorest areas. And, it was, so I have kind of mixed feelings about this. Now, again, nothing I say has anything to do with the people who serve. I have the utmost respect for them. What I'm talking about is just in terms of as a whole. Because the way I see, when we're talking about, especially in times of shrinking budgets, right? When we provide a program, I guess I have a couple questions. Does that mean we are also need to replace something else, or that kind of funding could have gone somewhere else, right? My second question is also again, like, I'm always open to be convinced. I'm going to try to stay as open-minded as possible. My second question is also, has there been like a demonstrated need for it that we're trying to fill with this? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And so one of the things that I want to make sure that we do, one of the things I love most about you, Director Wong, is that you do come into a conversation open versus being closed off, as in from the gate, we don't need to be doing this and this is terrible. So I like the fact that that we come in open. From a budgetary perspective, I agree with you 100%. We just went through a budget crisis, and we've already said that we are deficit budgeting, and that now for everything that we're doing right now, there's going to have to be there's a trade-off. Where is that coming from? And that's where I believe that we go back and we say, okay, this is our baseline. This is where we're at. If this is going to happen, then this is how it needs to happen. This is what it needs to look like from a budgetary perspective. This is what it needs to look like from a management perspective. So I believe that we're in a space where we can direct that traffic. I'm also concerned as well about recruiting. I don't think that we should be heavily recruiting our students. Let me take my hand down because I'm actually talking now. I don't think that we should be doing like this heavy recruiting aspect. I believe that what JRTC offers, though, is a leadership curriculum. So every other program, all the other different programs that we come in, they have a curriculum, right? And that curriculum curtails how what they're going to come in with, and then what they're going to know at the end of that curriculum. So when we look at it from the curriculum and what the students are going to learn and what they're going to gain, then we have to ask ourselves, again, are we trying to make the decision for the students because of our own bias, right? And so no one looks at our CTE programs that have a curriculum and say, I've got this bias because we're going to be pushing people towards sheet metal work. or we're going to be pushing people towards becoming an electrician? Or are we going to be heavily recruiting people to become carpenters? Are we going to be heavily recruiting people to become plumbers? I mean, these are CTE programs, and these are different curriculum-based programs, and we don't have the same bias because, you know, for one reason or another, we've placed value on what is okay and what is not, based on our lens and how we're viewing things. So we're looking at this saying, based on my lens, the military has a bad track record of trying to recruit kids, and I'm not trying to send my kids off to war, and I don't want my kids to die. When the reality is, we got more kids dying going to Plaid Pantry. We got more kids dying going to a house party. We got kids dying just coming to school. So we have to remove this bias that says, I'm afraid that they're going to die, unless we're going to look at everything across the board and say we have to prevent, we have to stop, we have to eliminate, and we're going to not make it available for everything across the board. So our kids can no longer go to Plaid Pantry. They can no longer go to house parties. They can no longer go to, you know what I'm saying, to so-and-so's house because they might die. We all might die. But that's not what this is about. This is about what are they learning? The kids are going to learn based on the curriculum. What does the curriculum state? So let's look at the curriculum. And if we find in the curriculum that there's something that is heavy on recruiting, then I say we got something to talk about. If we find in the curriculum that something is heavy on pushing towards the military, then now we got something to talk about. But if the curriculum doesn't state that, then how is that part of the conversation?
I'm just would like to know how it would work physically. Like, would it just be one school? Would it be taught during the school day? Would it be after school? How many people? Just kind of the nuts and bolts of how it would work. Because right now it just seems kind of out there without any kind of plan.
No, I believe that is where we would bring in the experts, and then we would, you know, that's where we would bring in Dr. Proctor, who is over curriculum and over schools, and and she would be able to look at it and say, this is how it could work, this is what it could look like, and this is the way that it could play out. I feel like our staff. So the reality of this, and I want to be 100% transparent because that's the only way I live. We are not fighting a right or wrong battle. This is political. So this is going to get politics. And so then you're going to have the warmongers who are going to come in and they're going to be saying, you know, we hate the military because the military has done this, and you know, we're this, and we're, you know, we need to be there and you need to let us know. Well, I'm going to say, I didn't see you at the Bend board meeting. I didn't see you at the Oregon City board meeting. So is that because it's okay for white students to be educated? It's okay for white students to get leadership capabilities. It's okay for white students to have the opportunities to succeed and their graduation rate to go up. But for us, when we're trying to give it to schools that are, maybe they do have some minorities, maybe they don't, but we're trying to give our schools that have a low graduation rate, schools where we have kids that are not showing up, we're trying to give them another opportunity, something else to look at. Now you want to come in and say something? I got a problem with that. It's our job to provide opportunities. It's our job to provide education. It's not our job to take away decisions from our students. And that's what we're doing by not giving them the option. Dr. Proctor and her team, her staff, that's not what I do. They can come in and tell us how it needs to work, because Patty, like I agree with you right now. I'm at a 100-yard mark. Like, I'm way out here looking in saying we need to do something bigger. We need to create more opportunities. And this isn't going to be the last opportunity that I bring forth to the Student Success Committee as far as like different things that I want to see our kids doing. You asked, how do we start? I don't think that right now that we should do it in every school, because I feel like we need to prove it, right? We need to prove whether or not this can be successful. And why would I don't want to waste a lot of our school's times. So I want to find one school that we can pilot this through. Let's create a pilot in a single school, similar to what we have done with Sitten, where they have a pilot program function in their school. And now we've actually seen these gains that have happened and taken place in their school where, so let's do a pilot in one of our schools, and then let's see how it works. And then let's critique it. Let's evaluate it. Let's come back and see, are we getting the results that we wanted to get? And if we are, then boom, we do it again. If we're not, then we pull out.
I can share a few things. Hopefully they'll be helpful. So I think underneath some of this is the question of why do our schools offer the courses that they offer, and who decides and who determines what is offered where. So in all of our high schools, we have a set of courses that are required for students to graduate from high school. Those decisions are made by the state of Oregon, Oregon Department of Education. Some of those decisions are made by the school board, PPS school board, and based on those decisions, schools identify what courses they have to offer. In addition to those courses, schools also offer a menu of elective options. And typically, those decisions around what additional courses to offer are preceded by some level of community engagement, conversations with teachers, conversations with students. Oftentimes there are conversations in site councils where schools make some determinations around what additional courses they're going to offer. So one thing that I would suggest is that if we collectively, whoever the we is, believe that JROTC should be presented as an option for schools as a course to offer, I imagine that our schools will want to make sure that there's some community engagement at the site level to determine level of interest from students, from families, from staff. There are some logistics involved. We have a district course approval committee. We have a committee of staff members that follow a process in determining what courses, when recommended, will be approved and not. And so if JROTC was going to be recommended by a school, it would go through a process, an approval process. And then there's an additional layer of us as a school district actually submitting an application to Department of Defense to be a host of the JROTC site. There's a form to be submitted. One thing that I have heard is that because there is a shortage, Department of Defense will want to make sure that there is sufficient student interest, right? And so that's why that community engagement process is both an opportunity to evaluate the level of interest, but also to perhaps engage in some marketing, some information sharing, some generating of excitement. So those would be some of the steps that I see as important. Community engagement, actual submission of the course approval for the course approval process, and then some interfacing with Department of Defense. So in my mind, this is not something that we can do tomorrow. I think we probably, if there's interest here, that's probably something that we would look at for the following school year, because our high schools are beginning forecasting process in January. In other words, high schoolers will be choosing courses for next school year shortly after winter break, probably end of semester one. So we would probably want to spend the rest of this year, early into next year, to just do some additional exploring around, is there high school that's of interest? What is the community engagement process that needs to happen? And then take it from there. I don't know anything else to.
Yeah, Philippe, I wanted to jump in here if I could. I think we, with this coming up and the work that we're doing to look into this, we could continue with that process because we know that it's going to have to take a process. I wonder what has to happen in order for you're talking about the forecasting of grades or class forecasting. Could you say a little bit more about that? Is that the course catalog that we complete, and then
Yes.
we have all course codes for the schools to select from?
That's right. So we're in the process of finalizing the course catalog, district course catalog, which high schools will then look at what are the menu, what are the courses that are available in our school district, and then they'll make determinations about which of those courses will appear in their school course catalogs. So all the high school principals with their counselors and scheduling teams will look at the district course guide and say, okay, of all of these courses, these are the ones that will appear in our individual schools, and then students will begin selecting those courses in January. So I would say any effort to add to the course guide for next school year, I don't think we have the time to do that.
But what could we, so let's go back as a team, Christina, Philippe, and I, and just kind of look at what that can look like. And then what else did you say are next steps in the process to continue to explore? Is it the community engagement?
Well, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what exactly we're talking about. If the ask is to find one high school that might serve as a pilot site, to me that sounds like a good idea, a good starting place. If that is the ask, then my next step would be to connect with high school principals and see if any of them are interested in engaging in this conversation further. And then beyond that, I think we would need to work with them to develop a community engagement process where families, teachers, students would have a chance to, I think, engage in the conversation that we're having here.
So, okay, so let's look at putting together proposed next steps. What I do here, and I'm going to ask for clarity from our directors as far as which pursuit would they like us to engage. Is it community engagement, to look at, to take the full process, to understand how we how we can build this forward, or is it looking at a pilot for one high school, and then we will look at engaging within the high school itself? Is it pilot, or is it let's go full scale, or what's the direction? I want to make sure that we have that.
I would think that we would be looking at the pilot first, right? Before we say, I don't want to make decisions for anyone. Let's reach out to our principals, and let's see if there's any the desire from there, right? Because what the last thing that we want to do right now is make someone feel like we're forcing them to eat something, right? I want kids to have an option, and I want them to be able to say no. If they want to say no, I need them to be able to say no. But we got to give them something that they can say no to. So let's do the same thing with the principals. Let's give them an option. Say, hey, look, we're considering this, and it's come up, and we want to know, are there any principals out there that would even be remotely interested in doing something like this before we even go down this road to start trying to engage with your students and engaging with your community? Is this going to be too much for you? So if we get the principal feedback first that says, yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm not, then from there, then we can say, okay, it looks like we've got a principal we might even find out that we've got 3 or 4 principals that are interested. They just never had the opportunity to say no. No one ever asked them, or they felt like they weren't going to have a board, a district that was going to support them in doing this, and they weren't ready for the political backlash that was going to come from something like this. So they were hands off. But if it looks like the board and the district is actually coming to you saying, hey, is this something that you're interested in? Because we believe that this could work, but we want to make sure that you feel like it could work in your school. We might be surprised in what we get back. So I'm wanting to get surprised in what we get back. From that, then I'd say, okay, now let's go to that school specifically, work with the administrator at that school, and let's reach out to the students in that school and say, hey, this is something that we were thinking about. Is there anybody in this school? Are there any young people, any students in this school that might be interested in something like this? Because again, it's for the kids. So the kids say yes, no, maybe, I don't know. So we go from there. And I believe that the focus needs to remain the curriculum and what they're going to learn. Not to say that we don't speak to the other aspect of it, but I shouldn't say but, because but means disregard everything that I just said and focus on what I'm about to say. And or however, I don't want us to be tainted by bias, because now we have a bunch of adults who come in and they start subliminally sending messages out saying that this is bad. Now, I know I'm not the only person that believes that people send subliminal messages around what they like or what they don't like. So I want us to be intentional about recognizing our own biases and ask ourselves, are we allowing our biases to prevent us from allowing someone else to make a decision about their future and not mine? Because again, remember, you've lived your life. You've had your time in the sun. Let's let these kids live their life, and let's let them have their time in the sun, and let's teach them how to make a decision for themselves by arming them with enough information to say yes or no. And then from that, then they say, okay, we got some buy-in from the students. Now let's pull in the rest of the community. Let's pull in all the parents that are going to be connected to this. Are you aware that your kids are interested in this? Are you aware that your kids are talking about that? Let's do a communication piece that speaks to all of the aspects of it. And now let's make sure that we arm the parents with information so that the parents can now jump in and say, I don't know if I like this for my kids or don't like this for my kids. And let's make sure that we're speaking to the community that's going to be impacted by it, and not some outside community that is completely detached, but yet feels they have the right to make a say in something that does not mind them. So let's make sure that the people that we're speaking to are the people that are going to be impacted by it, and not just the ones who want to come in and sow bias. And then from there, we can decide how quickly we roll it out. Bada bing, bada boom.
Thank you, Director Green. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to first say thank you, Director Green. It's been great to see how invested you are into this, but I think I hear you saying, we don't want to, make those decisions for our students, but I think it would be interesting to see, I know with seeing just reading and just hearing from you, how you talked about like their leadership values and the skills they'll gain. But I think to me, it seems like an even bigger conversation. It's maybe some sort of like survey, and there's like a selection of these, programs like this. And I do wonder if this is like an elective, is this an after school thing? And, obviously just hearing like some like the budgetary restrictions we're going in, just hearing like some of the trade-offs. And it's like, if, for example, it's like, if we can get, an extra mental health support, with that kind of conflict with this JROTC, I think to me, it's just, I haven't heard any interest from students from this. I think just hearing from it, I think I see lots of the benefits, but I do see lots of the downsides and the trade-offs, and just like understanding kind of like the logistics, like how we make this possible, and like where would this be like housed? Is it in like a PE place? Would that, take away from a PE class? and just hearing like lots of more. I think to move on more with this, I think we need to start with student engagement and just getting out the logistics first and kind of opening this conversation to the district student council, seeing where their stance is at.
I do think.
I think we could take a multi-tiered, approach and as we investigate this forward for sure. But thank you so much for your comments.
I do think that there are, and again, I don't know much about the JROTC piece other than what I've been reading. And it feels like there are several questions even just asked here that we just need more information on. I've heard things around curriculum. Like as I'm just kind of reading through, I think before we take it to principals, we would have to have a solid understanding about, this is an elective opportunity, right? This is CTE. I think it's important to note what is in the curriculum. I know that's been a question. Also, I know there's a big question around, does that mean you have to join the military? It specifically says, no, you do not, right? That it is, as I'm reading here, there are definitely leadership opportunities, but they do go into, if I'm reading the curriculum, what it says here, there are pieces around, talking about the military, right? And those types of things. So I just think that there are some unsettled questions that we need to get answers for here, because we need to be prepared when we go talk to principals about to say, hey, this is what JROTC offers. And then I agree with Philippe, and I agree with Director Green about the pilot piece. I think that makes sense. I believe in what you were saying around student engagement. I think that's extremely important. And there's also, I think it was mentioned here, we also have to sit down and talk about, if we're going to explore it, right, what are potentially going to be the trade-offs, right? Because it would be an add to, and that's just something fiscally we have to think about.
And we don't have time if we have getting the curriculum out in January. It sounds like this year is the exploring year to see if it can be done. I can't imagine it could get into the curriculum in January. You've got to get the, so at least this could be the year to explore.
Could be, yeah.
And I think it would be interesting to hear some data about how schools like of our size and in our situation, similar situations as us, kind of how that affected their students, and just hearing from what their students talked, how they felt about it, and hearing from what their building admin felt about it as well. And I think we should really engage with, as well as our educators too, how they feel about it, kind of do like a little temperature check to see how they may feel about it and see if there's any more insight on the situation.
I think because we have some schools, I think I heard that we have some neighboring schools or districts that have these programs. Would it be worthwhile to take a subcommittee of this committee to take a look as we're exploring, right? Because it's often, so I want to say clearly that I have come from systems where they have had JROTC programs at, if not the majority of, or then almost all of the high schools. And it was representative of all of the armed forces, but there was never, I've seen it work well. I've seen leadership development in students. I've seen students have a strong sense of belonging and connection where otherwise they perhaps would not have had this sense of belonging and connection. They learned a lot. They participated in drills, and drills are competitive. You could compete with other neighboring, like to say, schools or districts for similar to how you have cheer drills or cheer competition or these types of activities. Through their programs, they have drill competition with other JROTC programs, and getting awards again and building a sense of team and camaraderie and such. But these are systems where I came into a system where it was already happening and had been happening for decades. It still happens today. These programs are just a part of the overall programming that they offer to students at the high school level, and it's based on student interest. And yes, students have an opportunity to graduate with a CTE, graduate with dual enrollment also while they're participating in JROTC, and graduate with a myriad of options. But there's nothing that says that the student has to go into the military. And oftentimes those students are really pursuing, if you know about the military, the various universities, the Navy program and Army have full university programs where students would get full scholarships. So there are a lot of opportunities that I see with this. Because context matters, and being in Pacific Northwest, ideas and approaches are different. It has not been done, I don't think, here in this district at all. And it doesn't look like it's not a practice, but we will still have to engage community students and go through the full exploration at some point to bring people along. And I wonder if part of bringing people along, or to help them to understand, because you can't ask people to share their ideas or views of something that they haven't seen, they haven't touched, they maybe, other than hearing a particular rhetoric that says it's bad for this reason or that reason. I think people should have an experience. So if we could connect with a program that could be visited, and to see what the benefits and challenges, what the challenges would be as well.
Yeah, Dr. Proctor, I was thinking the same thing, so thank you. I'm hearing a desire to learn more. I'm hearing there's a desire to engage and to find a way to move forward. And I wanted to offer that I can reach out to Army instructor, Sergeant First Class Rob Aguilar at Oregon City High School, and either ask him to join us here to share more about his experiences as the Army instructor at Oregon City, or I can ask him if he would be willing to host a small group of us and we can visit Oregon City High School. And I can see if any of the high school principals would be interested to join us. So I'm not sure if either of those ideas sound like a good next step. In other words, either a visit or asking.
If we did that, would it be possible to also connect with our DSC and see if we can get some of our DSC council, our student reps to go and be a part as well, so that they can be a part of these site visits, and maybe it counts as a day for them, so that they're not missing any classwork. Maybe it can be during a time where I don't know. Let's work with figure out a way for our students to be part of the process the whole way, versus us coming back and saying, this is what we saw. Allow them to see it firsthand, allow them to ask their own questions and that sort of thing. Is that possible to figure out as we're looking at the exploration process?
Yeah, I'm happy, like I said, to reach out to Oregon City and just ask if we can visit and maybe get more information about how big the group can be. And I agree with you that students should be part of the process from the get-go. And starting with our student reps here, I think, is a good place to start. Would you want to come?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, we got one, Director Green, at least one.
Yeah. I'll put my faith in JJ. This is a really good conversation. I'm glad, but I do agree with you. I think that JJ, we need to start with our kids first, our students first, because they're the ones that should be guiding this conversation. The other thing I am worried about, and I'll still keep repeating this over and over again, is that we're working off a pie, not a fountain, right? Which means that if we're putting effort into this, what are we trading off? Repeating what you said earlier, we have to be trading off something else. Now, I'm just curious, like with the same amount of effort, does that mean, are we foregoing like potentially turning another school into an IB school, right? Which would be something I would be very interested in, but we'll talk about that later. I'm just, so I think the idea, Dr. Proctor, of a subcommittee, maybe Director Green, if I can volunteer you and JJ, and you can pick who you want to bring along. That'd be great. So I think I'm kind of in a position like stated earlier, was I think I don't have enough information to really decide one way or the other. So I think a subcommittee idea is a great idea.
I think the other thing that I would just offer is that schools go through a process of thinking about what CTE programs they want to, what is it, the menu of offerings that they want to have. So we have a process where where schools address readiness and sort of program, portfolios that they're putting together for their sites. So that I think this would fold into that process. It also begs the question, as Director Green stated, how are our CTE programs doing? Who are they serving? Do we know what that looks like? It's also been part of the advanced coursework that we've been looking at, thinking about what are the ways that students are demonstrating college and post secondary readiness. So college and career readiness, which is one of the board goals that has been in sort of, it's not really a formal board goal, but we keep checking on it. So this, again, it will help provide context as to who is taking advantage of what is the body of students that are doing those things, and this then can form into that same conversation, I would suggest.
Cool. I like that. I guess what's next? Director Green, or should I just let you guide the next direction? What's
I
next?
will connect with, I need to get some contact information for JJ so that I can, as I'm making these different connection points and conversations, that I can figure out how I can loop him into these conversations. I believe between the two of us, we can create a strategy that is both open to possibilities, as well as making sure that we are being inclusive of the student, and I would say the entire student body, and not just some of the student body. So for this type of activity, we're not looking for the student. Let's be realistic. We're looking for the ones that don't feel connected already to something, right? They haven't found their place yet. They haven't found their niche yet. They need something and they're just not quite getting it. And so that person realistically doesn't come to the DSC site council meeting. They don't come because they're barely coming to school maybe. So we need to figure out how we're going to connect with the entire student body and not just the ones that show up to all the meetings. If that makes sense, right? And that's been I know that's been one of the battles that DSC has been fighting for years now, because it's been, when I was at Roosevelt all the time and Philippe was there, it was hard for us to try to put together the DSC and get the site council, the students to come together to even know what it was. Like, what is that? What do they do? What do they talk about? And then the students that did showed up, they all dressed the same. They all thought the same. They all ate at the same place. They were the same students. I'm looking for the students that we're not connecting with. I'm looking for Antoine. I'm looking for Steve. I'm looking for Bobby. I'm looking for little Billy. I'm looking for the ones that don't quite feel connected. They haven't found their place yet. They need something. And so that's why I want to work with JJ. He can help us figure out how we're going to connect with every student and not just one. So the more student involvement I can get to help me with that process, then the more I can channel my energy, my resources, my finances. I'm not asking the district to pay for something that if I want a survey and I want everybody to do it, then I'll pay the students to take the survey. I don't need the district to do that for me because I got my own money. So whatever. I just want to talk to the people. So you get me in the room, I'll do the rest.
Great. I think we have a direction. Sarah, Miles, do you have? And Miles, sorry, Sarah and Miles, do either of you have any questions or comments?
I think Miles had to leave, but I was just gonna say I would be interested, Director Green too, in helping JJ part of that process because I think like student transparency is very important. And with what you were talking about, I totally agree with how we can oftentimes like even though we might do it like subconsciously, like we veer towards like one group of audience, like one type of people. And so I'd be interested in helping out with like reaching out to affinity groups and people that identifies people of color and lower income families and communities, since those are the people that are most in those situations. And I'd be willing to help with that outreach and stuff to get student input. And I can send you my contact info or something.
Absolutely. I'm with it. Let's make it happen.
Unless there's other comments?
Like two more things. And I was just wondering in our next meeting if it would be possible to just kind of get like the finances and how much it would cost. And then it was like kind of my question to Margaret, if you heard any interest from building leaders about this program.
I haven't spoken with building leaders directly about it, but we do have a process every year, as I said, where we engage and say, you know, what are the things you're thinking about? And to Director Green's comments as well, the question is how do you understand the level of interest from students about any course that we're offering, and this would be part of that same process. So we have done a variety of surveys over the years at different sites. We work closely with counselors and folks from Chief Puno's staff to go out and work with kids directly and talk through what are the ways that we want to keep kids engaged in school and what brings them to school. So I think that there are mechanisms that we can do that I have not had a specific conversation with principals about this.
I have.
JROTC.
I know of 3 principals right now that would say yes if they felt like the district or the board was going to support them. 3 principals right now. Their phone numbers are in my phone. So there are 3 principals already on deck, and I'm still choosing to say we only need 1. We choose 1, we do a pilot, and we show that it works. We walk, we crawl, we walk, we run. There's no reason to just throw it all out there. Let's crawl first, little baby steps, then we'll start walking, and then we can take off and run after we've proven the process. But yes, to answer the question of are there principals out there that want it? I have 3 confirmed that said absolutely yes. They're just not sure that this district will support them because of the political backlash that may or may not come. My response is, you do education, let me focus on politics, because your job is to educate, not to do politics. I'll do all the politicking for everybody. It's good. They'll slash my tires again. But just think, I got 4 brand new tires, brand new. And all I had to pay was $250 for them. So I'm going to win every time.
Cool. Thanks, Director. Should we move on to public comment? Yeah, unless anyone else has anything. No? Okay. You want to read off the list?
Yes. John Weshko.
Speak from here.
Sure. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah. Also, I want to pass these things around. You could do that while I'm talking.
My name is John Gresho, and I coordinate the War Resisters League in Portland. I've worked in Portland Public Schools as a special ed assistant, an after-school program instructor, and a mentor. I understand the importance of keeping students engaged and showing up for school. But JROTC is not the way to fix these problems. There is no tangible evidence that JROTC motivates students to stay in school. If that were true, then why, according to a New York Times expose, are so many schools across the country now requiring struggling students to sign up for JROTC? I'll tell you why. It's because making the program mandatory is the only way they can keep attendance up and keep the military from pulling the plug on the program. Making JROTC mandatory is counterproductive, and it's also wrong. And it's also wrong to have a two-tiered system in our high schools where successful students are encouraged to go to college and struggling students are steered towards the military. And by the way, JROTC is all about military recruitment despite claims to the contrary. The costs of a JROTC program are minimal in the beginning, but after a couple of years, the school district will be expected to pick up most of the expenses. The curriculum is designed by the Pentagon, and instructors are not required to have college degrees. JROTC doesn't teach life skills. It teaches life and death survival. History is taught from war to war, as we did in the 1950s, and most of the historical figures are distinguished only because of their heroism in war. More generally, the military teaches recruits that problems are best solved by violent means. Enlistees in the military learn skills that are likely to be non-transferable to civilian jobs, putting them even further behind. And military service messes big time with enlistees' mental health, frequently leaving them with PTSD and other additional trauma from repeated physical and sexual abuse inflicted upon both men and women. I raise these broader issues because JROTC is not a standalone program. It's a part of the overall recruitment and training process. And because a large percentage of JROTC participants do enlist in the military, JROTC is part of the recruiting process and contributes in a big way to the militarization of public schools. I strongly encourage you to give JROTC a pass. Once you get it going, it's really difficult to undo.
Sylvia Hart-Landsberg.
Thank you. I just want to speak from my heart to some of the points on the table. And I will start with violence. The military needs to help the schools, of course, and students learn about national defense. But to invite in a program that's not an extracurricular program, nor is it an academic program, as a replacement for sound curricula, pedagogy, and career guidance isn't the route to go. Students need to learn about fighting and how humans build groups and nations, how they use politics and power, and how they struggle and strive in the context of other lessons. Now, all of our lessons pull things out of context, but this military focus for a whole course, quietly, not always tacitly, for a specific portion of our student population isn't wise for them. It's making a choice for them very quietly. And that's not something that we need to do. I think that there are deficits in our schools. And if certain segments of the population, or our people generally speaking, are suffering from these deficits, they should be directly addressed, not through a program that avoids helping people with their scholastic problems. So I've addressed violence, I've talked about the school deficit, and I'd like to talk a little bit about careers and heroism. Because we talk to students at our tables in the schools, and have for years. and they want to be heroes. Quite a number of them are interested in the military tables because they want to serve their country and they care about people. And they want a path to follow with a good career. Do we back up to one narrow kind of education as an excuse for not providing that in our other programs? I loved your word trade-off, and I call that an opportunity cost. The energy, the passion that we put into bringing JROTC into our schools, if we go that route, could be much more effectively used on other parts of our schooling. Is JROTC all bad? No. But could we get more bang for our buck if we stayed away from that kind of narrow training? I think we could. Thank you. Oh, I just want to say one more thing about leadership. Yes, we need to teach leadership, but in that context, it's very skinny kind of leadership. We need to talk about leadership in nurturing careers, healing careers, artistic careers, investigation, inquiry, creating, and in national defense. But to backtrack with a whole offering saying, oh, well, we need students to make the choice. We have so many choices we don't offer our students that going to the military for one of them as our first place to go, It doesn't hold water. It's not rational. And our experience in other realms of education shows us that's not where you improve education. Thank you.
Michael Este.
I've been following this conversation for a number of months, and I want to put out my bona fides, if I might, as far as I went to Peninsula Elementary School, Chief Joseph, Ockley Green, and then I managed to get to Adams High School. I had some of the most wonderful teachers you could possibly imagine. The majority of my teachers have master's degrees or better. A lot of them were doctorates. A lot of them were out of Princeton, Harvard, Brown. These were educated people, and they came here specifically to teach at Adams, which was a novel concept. But for me, I was raised in Northeast Portland, and I'm the guy that the Director Green was talking about. I'm the guy that didn't connect. I had the best staff that you could possibly get me, and I just couldn't keep up with them because they were so far above and beyond where I was at in Northeast Portland with trying to make money and stay out of trouble, but I didn't have any role models. So my role model, which is interesting, I'm a history statement, by the way, and I really want to talk about this gentleman for the building that we're meeting in right now. This gentleman needs to be talked about even more, Dr. Proffitt, because Dr. Proffitt was raised in Mississippi. He was picking cotton. His parents said, heck no, you're not doing that. They found the money to send him to school, but he couldn't finish college. For whatever reason, through the articles, and I talked to the Oregonian writer that put this article together, and she's going to give me the background on all this because she related to me about this article. Dr. Proffitt was he was brought in on the draft. He went to Korea. 9 months after he was a sergeant in the United States Army. I'm a retired master sergeant. That means something to me. This guy is on the ball. Then when he got back, instead of getting out, he stayed in the Army. He put himself through night school. He got a commission as a second lieutenant. He rose to the rank of lieutenant colonel. He's been awarded numerous Valor medals and Purple Heart. He served in Vietnam. He came back here and was our district person, our superintendent, for 10 years. He was that guy that everybody got along with. He was such that guy, he attributed a lot of that to what he learned in the military. It's not for everybody. I know some people are going to go to Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz. Some people are going to be over at the law school at Lewis and Clark. I get that. But for a lot of people like myself, we don't have the role models to watch to go into your school system and do well. I did go through the Marine Corps, 26 years, but it was a gentleman, my career counselor, that said, you know, you're going to get suspended. You might want to talk to the military. I had no intentions of joining the military. I had no affiliation for the military. That is not what I was thinking at all. I was thinking I'm about ready to get suspended for school for skipping, among other things. So I met a recruiter. The recruiter was in my school in 1977. He remembered my name. He said something to me later after I managed to get suspended from school, and I joined the Marines. I'm gone in San Diego. My 3 years is up. I stayed. I go through 26 years in the Marine Corps. I retire. I come back home. I've served in combat in Iraq, and I recognize that some of what you say up here, I've had different opinions and I have different experiences. I don't devalue what you have to say. I respect it. But my experience is much different. I was a Northeast kid that went through a lot of schools that couldn't graduate, but I'm told that I am the newest high school graduate of Portland Public Schools. This was dated October of last year, or this year, October, and it's signed off because I found out that there was a law that was passed that said that if you left school, joined the military, got an honorable diploma, and you came back, you could submit for this. And I thought it was a joke. I called the lady that controls that. She got my high school diploma transcripts, put everything together, and 3 weeks later, I had a high school diploma from Portland, Oregon. I can't tell you how proud of this I am. And when I came back out of the Marine Corps, when I retired, I went straight to Portland State University for 4 years and have a bachelor's degree in business administration. My oldest daughter's graduated out of University of Oregon with a business degree. I have my middle daughter is at U of O right now as a junior. I've got another one slated to go to Oregon State. All of those things would have never happened unless, again, it's not for everybody, but for me and people like me, I had an opportunity to gain traction by being surrounded by people who could say, not like this, but like this. And they showed me the value of education. I came home and I used my VA loan to purchase a home. And I just want to say, there's so much good in Portland, and I know that you can make a difference with it, and I thank you for that. And we have a history with the military. It disappeared for a long time, but I'm a history statement to say it worked once, and I believe it can work again.
Thank you.
That's everybody signed up.
Okay, cool, thank you. That was a lot to think about, thank you. Anybody has anything else?
Is that Gary that joined us? What's good?
Collins, welcome.
What's good?
Did you have your hand up? You want to say something?
Yes. I've been listening to this on the streaming station. But I just wanted to kind of just look at, when we talk about the ROTC program, I think when we really look at the programs as a whole, I mean, we know there's a lot of positive that goes with this, right? When we talk about leadership development, we talk about character building, we talk about community service that many ROTC programs is involved in their communities. When we look at career explorations, when you look at the different career tracks, I think we have to look at how do we get away from looking at it as just a wartime organization, and also look at the career explorations that kids can get out of that as well, from doctors, lawyers, social workers, teachers. All of those comes out of that could potentially come out of the JROTC programs, and so I wouldn't necessarily want to look at this as what negative that could come out of this, but let's look at what positive that could come out of this. Let's look at, when we look at the impact on our student outcomes, right? The RAND Corporation had a survey done just as 2023 happened, and it talked about, those that join ROTC programs, attendance rates increased, right? Those that joined the program academically fared off better. And it even talked about those that started the program and dropped out in the first year, how worse off they was than those that stayed. So while I hear everybody's side on whether we should or shouldn't do this, I just would have everybody just kind of focus on what is the possibilities, what is the benefits, not for our own understanding as adults, but for our kids. Those kids that wouldn't necessarily be able to go to college because of the funding that they don't have. And can this provide them a way for funding? When we talk about generational wealth, being able to come out of the military and using the GI Bill to buy your house, to start generational wealth with your families. Let's look at the positives that could come out versus why we shouldn't do it. And I think we should just kind of focus on why we should and what we can benefit. Not us as adults, but what our kids can benefit. And we can just keep our focus on kids. I think then we can look at kids coming out of high school should have multiple opportunities. They should have multiple ways to go. It shouldn't just be college. It shouldn't just be career technical stuff. It shouldn't just be one way or the other. They should have multiple options when they come out. And I think this is just one option of many that we have in our schools today. And this could be one option that we add to our tool belt. When a worker, and I'm a real big CTE fan. When a worker has a tool belt, he has multiple tools in his tool belt. He don't just have one or two. He have multiple because he doesn't never necessarily know what he's going to need when he come up to a problem or solution. And this is all we're saying is JROTC could just be another tool in their toolbox. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Green, JJ, Sarah, I think you have your homework, right? Your assignment. Still looking for the pros cons list and the student outreach and see what everyone has to say about that. Cool, thank you.
Director Wong done put his teacher hat back on.
Director
and now he's doing
Wong.
homework.
Yeah, I heard my name somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was just curious if we had Philippe on that as well to continue the exploration.
I'm not going to volunteer.
Yeah.
Want to, yeah.
Director Green, will you have me on the team?
Of course, I'm gonna have you on the team. You my man.
All right, Dr. Proctor, I'm on the team.
Thank you.
Any online comments that can be read out loud?
Do we have any online comments?
I know I submitted one, so there's going to be at least one.
There was comment submitted, written, and it was shared with the board.
Do you know if that was going to be out loud or?
Yeah, I think although I did see some comments, I haven't had a chance to read it, but I'll read it. Yeah, thank you. All right, I would like to move on to the next because for time's sake, we were kind of running a little low on time. But before we kind of continue, I don't know if Sarah, Miles, if you're still with us over there. And JJ, one of the things I want to mention about Student Success Committee is that this is about the students, right? So I sent an email out to you three earlier today. I'm sorry it was kind of late, so you don't have to answer today. But one of the things I would like is if our student reps also kind of help set what kind of agenda items you want to discuss and talk about. One of the things that the Student Success Committee, obviously in the name, right, it's about what will help our students succeed. But we serve kind of, the way I see it, this committee kind of serves like three roles, right? One is kind of an oversight, kind of see what programs are going in, what they're doing for our kids, and kind of reviewing if they're showing success or not, right? Hopefully showing success. The other potential is like, for example, we just noticed sometimes there's action items where we have something we might explore or implement, or if there's something like we might, in a very rare chance, think of maybe a policy direction or something that we want to send to the board. Those are also options as well. With that said, if anyone has any questions, I would like to move on to the graduation requirements.
Just thinking about, for the students to bring in maybe problems you see that we can talk about, things that we might do to make people more successful that we don't see because we're not in the classroom. And that's something I'd like really to hear about. You can get that out to your friends and to get back to us.
Like I said, I was going to save a couple minutes at the end, just kind of have an open conversation. If you three want to have ideas you want to throw out there, or you can always just email me later or do it next time. There's no timeline. except this year. Great. For graduation requirements, just kind of introduce a little bit. We're started looking at graduation requirements as part of, there's always that conundrum where you want graduation requirements to say something, right? To mean something, to show rigor, but at the same time, you don't want it to be inaccessible or reduce, for example, graduation rates because they may be unattainable for certain pathways. And so one of the things that we talk about in graduation requirements is, how do we continue to have high expectations, but without cutting people off, right? I don't know, that's kind of oversimplistic and I really butchered it, so I'm sorry I didn't have enough coffee today. But I think there's a presentation, right? So I think we can start with that and then have questions come after.
Sure, I know we're short on time, so I'll just provide a quick overview. Wanted to make sure that the committee was aware of a new set of graduation requirements as part of Senate Bill 3, which passed last spring. This bill establishes that class of 2027, so this is current ninth graders, students who are currently enrolled in ninth grade, will be required to complete a half a credit of personal finance and half a credit of higher education and career path skills as part of their 24 credit graduation requirement. We can go to the next two slides, provide a bit more information about these two requirements. You can see that career path skills calls for schools to ensure that schools are providing instruction on how to apply for jobs, how to apply for admission to post-secondary institutions, support students towards developing career-related skills, etc. And then the following slide talks a little bit more about personal financial education and what that should include, namely education around credit scores, investment, strategies for creating a budget, taxes, building financial well-being, etc. As far as the logistics are concerned, the following slide, we understandably are wanting to make sure that our current ninth graders have these new graduation requirements incorporated in their graduation plans, but unfortunately the state or ODE is yet to release the actual standards and information about licensure requirements. So they are in the process right now of convening panels which will develop those standards and determine if there are any specific licensure requirements. You can imagine that if we had to hire teachers who have special licensure to teach financial literacy across our high schools and across the state, that would probably be untenable. But nonetheless, we're waiting for ODE to provide more information. That information should be available this spring, which means that next school year would be the year that we are then building out what will most likely be these new courses, which would then be available to students the following school year. So our current ninth graders will probably have to wait until junior year before they can actually begin working towards completing these graduation requirements. The good news is that all of our high schools already offer a course called College and Career Education, which appears at least to align with one set of these requirements. I did have a conversation with somebody from ODE to see if we could retroactively award credit, and the answer was yes. So that's good. And so our hope is to, watch closely. We can go to next slide. To see when the standards are finalized. We're in the process of auditing our courses to see what courses do we already offer that maybe align with some of these new expectations, and then we'll be most likely creating new courses during the 24-25 school year to add to the district course catalog. and making those available for students in 25-26. So that's a little bit about SB 3. Any questions there?
Yeah, I just want, oh, sorry.
Go for it, no, you first.
Yeah, but I just really want to say, I think I've heard a lot from students just talking about learning about taxes is something that they're really interested in. You know, I definitely wish, you know, I was able to, but, you know, I graduated in 2025, so, you know, I obviously won't be a part of it. But I do wonder, how do we plan to, like, engage with our community and talk to them about, like, the Senate bill? And, like, kind of what's, like, the timeline for that?
How the students will know in the community? Yeah, good question. We're having conversations at this point with our building leaders because they're oftentimes thinking ahead to make sure that they're offering the right courses in order for their students to graduate. And what we're saying now is we have to wait until we get more information from the state. So at this point, there really isn't anything that students could do to fulfill these requirements. Other than to continue, you know, going to class and do well in the classes that you're taking. But we're hoping that next school year, we will be sharing a lot more information with students and families to say, this bill was passed, here is what the state decided are the standards, here's what that means for you so that nobody's surprised.
I think I also heard you say, JJ, that there is some interest in students saying, here are some things that would be valuable for us to learn, and can we also map from student interest to the state standards in both directions, right? So to get to hear from kids and say, here, you know, from our current students of, so I'm with you, I've heard from a number of students and my own children, like, you know, we need some more financial literacy. How do we make decisions about a variety of things as we're either working for the first time and or planning for post-secondary. So I think there's an opportunity to both get a sense of interest in what are the topics, and then is that something that we can align with the standards and try to bridge that and do it in both directions.
My guess is that, yeah, I agree. I wish I had this when I was a kid. Doing my taxes every year, right? It's been difficult. Learning curve. My guess is that is probably going to be certifying existing teachers to teach this, right? Like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on when we get the curriculum, but you know, usually they like assign social studies teachers or something to do this, right? So I guess clarifying questions are typical. If that does happen that way, right? It's probably. There's probably a route where teachers can get certified over summer, you know, using their professional development stipends and stuff like that. Okay, good.
And I think the other piece that's in here and the timeline is, you know, what does this mean for a PPS diploma, right? Or and how is that fitting into the credit requirements that we're looking at, which is it's part and parcel of this whole conversation, right? So this is a you know, is it something that becomes formalized and then is it a specific line on a graduation on a diploma or whatnot? So I think some of those details will have to be sorted out in the coming year.
You know, like, would it mean maybe you couldn't take that art class you want because you have to take this?
Well, it could mean that instead of, so, you know, it could mean like they're 24, it's part of the 24 graduation requirement, so they haven't expanded the total number of credits to graduate. They've changed the mix of what's required. And then our high school students have an opportunity to earn potentially up to 32 credits. So it may not be the trade-off, but it may be that you have to, of the 24, you have to have this explicitly instead of it being in a category for social studies as a whole or something.
But you do have more hands to take.
Yes, more. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was going to be my question. Like, is this replacing something or is it adding on top? It sounds like it's replacing, right?
In the Oregon diploma it does, and then PPS diploma is slightly different, right? Because our graduation requirements include world language on top, so we have more credits that students have to complete. We have a different mix of credits. So the total bucket may still be the same, but what is going into that bucket may be different. And students, again, 24 credits is the minimum requirements, right? So we're expecting students to explore at a richer level. 24 is not what we're aiming for. We're aiming for beyond 24, right? So.
So this would be a semester credit?
2 semester credits.
But it's already been worked in regards to the career. That's, as you heard Dr. Ristich talk about, that we already have a course that aligns. It's our, when our kids become juniors though, right? That personal finance piece, we currently don't have a course, and so that is one where that 0.5 is a semester. So that's one we'll have to have a course, and we're gonna have to take that course, either the juniors.
Yeah, so personal finance course could certainly cover.
Correct.
Both of them.
I mean, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's like what JJ mentioned. I mean, it's,
Just for the sake of time, because we have 2 minutes left, should we save the, asking everyone present, if we should save the equitable grading practices for
you
next
should
time?
save it. That's a big topic.
Yeah, because I have a lot of questions about that, and a lot of cool things I see as well. Oh, yeah, I see someone's hands up. Is that?
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say also with the I looked over the new graduation requirements, like what was in the slideshow, and with the replacing, I'd be a little bit concerned with Lincoln, for example, as a full IB school, and I'm also a full IB student, so there's certain requirements for that. So how would that affect the diplomas like that? And would it take away from being able to do something? I don't know. I'm not sure. But I think it'd be good to consider that.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Does anybody know the answer to that off the top?
I think we'd have to look into that.
Right.
And I'll get back to you.
Right. And ODE, what they're doing is they're working through some of these pieces now, and that's definitely going to be, because it is going to affect our juniors around. I'm assuming that they're going to have, because we're not the only district that has IB schools, right? This is very prevalent across the state, and so that will be something that I'm sure, hopefully, we'll get some guidance on, whether we use proficiency or, anyways, those are specific types of things that I think we'll have to look into.
Great, thank you.
That's a great question, though.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, anything else? I just want to, the reason I want to kind of end this really quick. So we'll save equitable grading practice for next time. That's a big one. But I also want to open up to our students and pry any, or you have any ideas you might have for what you want to see this committee kind of explore or talk about, or what directions that you're thinking of, what needs you see today. Yeah, and of course, you don't have to answer this now, but if you want to spend a couple of minutes kind of exchanging ideas, that would make my day. Yes,
Yeah, I'll start off. And so I think it would be, I don't know if this committee would do, I'm not too sure, but I think it would be cool to see how, because I feel like oftentimes students have a hard time navigating the district, who do I go to, or they go to the departments page and there's so many roles. So I think it'd be really interesting to see if we can we can find avenues for navigators for students, and who to contact. Do I contact the head of the department, or do I contact someone that maybe lower down the food chain, or whatever the chain of command? And I did talk to students about the program that we were talking about, and I heard some students say how they think that's a really good program, but what they would like to see is a cosmetology class. I think especially for our Black and brown students who happen to be our underserved students, I think that is really going to be beneficial, because I hear tons of conversations like, oh, I would love to learn how to braid hair, I would love to learn how to do nails, and if our district could provide that for our students, I really see that boosting in the attendance because that's something they're truly passionate about. And kind of layering that with maybe it's, I know Benson has their medical program and they connected with nursing departments and hospitals. Maybe we could connect them with cosmetologists, businesses and all that, and local businesses. And I really think I don't know who could look into that or could get me more data or information on that, but I really think that would be really helpful for our students.
Yeah, adding on to JJ, I know the DSC discussed last meeting having some sort of district directory that students could have availability to, because for me personally, before joining DSC, I had no idea about anything that went on the district and how anything worked. And so I think just in general, finding ways to be more transparent or include more student voices and outreach and input into all the decisions that we take as a district is just beneficial, since it is impacting the students the most. I feel off the top of my head, I don't have any major ideas, but I'm willing to think of them and then let you guys know about them in the future.
Thank you. I like that both of you mentioned a district directory. Is there an example of a situation or a need that happened once that you could give that kind of helps illustrate where the confusion and where that may help maybe?
Well, I think, for example, I know we've had this conversation with Margaret and my student council did, but sometimes we had topic of lunchtime, how to extend it. And I think and I know tons of students try to reach out to tons of people in the district, but it was just a little bit hard for them to navigate who's the right person. I know some of y'all have really busy schedules and all that, and it's hard to answer emails. But if there's some sort of person students could go to, or I know there's the what's it called? There's some sort of page.
Let's Talk.
Yeah, the Let's Talk feature. I think that's a really good thing. Mm-hmm. But I did hear from students that it takes a long time to get a response. So if there's just a way students could get obviously get their answer to questions, but in that more of a timely manner, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, that's a good one.
What'd you say that was called?
Let's Talk.
Let's Talk.
And I think there used to be a link on the DSC page just for students that you guys could use for questions. Do you know?
Yeah, there still is, but I think the students aren't really using it because I know not too many students, really go on the PPS page, so it's just a little bit hard to kind of find. Mm-hmm. But I think just looking at different ways, how can we kind of promote it, whether I think social media is obviously a really great way of engaging with students. So I think just looking into more things like that.
Collins, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I was listening to the students speak, and I think it would be great. And just an idea. I'm just throwing ideas as I hear them speak. Maybe we have a student liaison department or something where students have a direct connect with a department that's directly for students. Just a thought.
And right now we have Yang Save Child, who's currently on maternity leave, but she fulfills that role for the DSC and our student movement. So definitely can get back, loop her in that conversation.
I feel this is also a good opportunity for a student internship to get credit for, shadow around and figure out how it works, and then work with the IT to develop the website. Just throwing that out there.
I'm sorry, and I have one more thing.
Yeah.
And I know tons of district staff and our leaders do evaluations, but what I've heard from students is we want to see you more involved in our community. We want to see you at our assemblies. We want to see you at our talent shows. And I think if we could see more of our district leaders and I think post about that on obviously our PPS Instagram, because I feel you're now in the world in a generation where it's if it isn't online, it kind of didn't happen. So I think it would be cool to just see you guys more at our events. I know McDaniel at December the 13th, we're hosting a winter craft fair where we're having tons of students in affinity groups, selling craft, and it's a way they can show our community and make profit from that. It's at McDaniel's from 3:30 to 5:30. So if you're able to come, that would be amazing.
Thank you.
13th, that's my birthday.
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Myself a birthday.
JJ also appreciated being invited to leadership class at McDaniel. So, I mean, the opportunities for us to enter into, to not only with the DSC, but then also the leadership classes at various schools, I think is a great chance. And it was, I'm very hesitant to have my picture taken, but I did get posted from what I understand.
Great.
That was absolutely hilarious.
Unless there's anything else, Sarah, Miles, both of you good? All right.
All right.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.